I'm Kit Gallagher, 29 years old, owner of Little Bay Beauties. Started the farm in Little Bay in 2018 and been trying to grow ever since then. So I did the aquaculture and fisheries and marine policy program down there. It's like marine affairs, bachelor's of science. I was down there and I was leaning more towards doing ocean engineering. And then I started working on the oyster farm down in Rhode Island, and I got more drawn into the aquaculture, and I just didn't picture myself like pretty much being in a computer, like doing that shit. I worked down there for 3 years while I was going to school, which was a good blessing in disguise. I last year sold just under 200,000 pieces. And that's kind of what I've been aiming to get towards, like that 250,000 oyster mark. This is kind of what I'm looking for, like this deep cup, super hard shell. You can feel how heavy this is. And that's kind of how I pride myself on my oysters, is like I'll try and tumble the whole farm, so like the whole year class, at least 3 times a year. Think of an oyster like a plant, like tumbling them chips this edge, which is how they're growing. So it's almost like pruning a plant. Promotes growth, makes them grow faster, tumbling them, sorting them by size. So it's getting like the faster growers away from the runtier oysters, because the bigger oyster in a bag with the smaller oyster, the bigger oyster is just going to outcompete. A lot of farms like the Cape and Duxbury and stuff, they shut down in the wintertime because their farms get exposed, so they don't harvest. So like the wintertime, like the dead of winter and the spring, is like the market's wide open. So if you have oysters by then, you're doing well. Luckily, like this summer's been a decent market, being able to sell, but I also don't want to bite off more than I can chew. It's not like rice and beans at the grocery store. It's like people that have some money or want to spend some money buy oysters. So I'm not naive to that. And if there's a hiccup in the market, like, you're in trouble. So what is it, November 8th? 53.8 degrees. Once the water gets below 50 degrees or so, the oysters stop feeding. So they pretty much go into hibernation. So they won't be able to repair their shell in the wintertime, and they could die if they're just left on the surface. So So what we're doing is we're taking those 2 short ropes off the ground line and putting one of these 40-foot ropes onto one end of the cage, and then sinking them by taking the caps off. We're mostly doing it because of ice in the wintertime. All the cages back there that you see, I have to pick through or tumble, get all the market size stuff out, put that back on that farm in just bags that lay on the bottom, so they're out of harm's way as far as freezing temps for the winter, and then I harvest out of that. Yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's like, it's kind of protecting you for like all of next year, you know what I mean? But that's what you gotta think about, is just your whole next year's crop. It's what you're protecting. What Mark's doing with his suit on eventually is he's gonna make sure all the air gets out of the floats as they're sinking, and then they land on the floats themselves to keep the oysters up off the mud so they don't get suffocated in the mud and die through the winter. Is it the metal one or the plastic one?
The small knob on this side.
You have a plan and then it's all different than what you thought you knew. It's just kind of part of the job. Trial and error, frustration sometimes, but I love working here.